Yeah, Vijito, we are live. You too live. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Sai, we can continue the session.
Yes. So, good morning, everyone. I hope your weekend went well. And to make it even better, today we have with us our guest speaker, Mr. Rahul Agawal. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sai and I will be the moderator for today's session. Now, since the placement season is going on in majority of colleges all over India, there is a very crucial doubt in the minds of our students, which is rampant among the students. How do we crack the interview round of any company? How do we pitch ourselves to the interview? Now, no matter which field or for whichever role you are interviewing for, you will always need to market yourself to the interview. You need to persuade them that you are the ideal candidate for the role. And the benefits of inducting you into the company will be tremendous. But how do we do that? What is the best way to do that? Rahul sir is currently serving as a senior data analyst at Majid Al Fateh. And on top of that, he's also our batchmate in the BS degree program. He has extensive experience of working in agile environments and he has provided solutions for a wide variety of challenges, ranging from data modeling and visualization to fraud detection and business intelligence decision making. Today, he'll be sharing with us some practical interviewing techniques and strategies to highlight our skills and our experience in an interview to the interview. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. That was a very warm welcome. I'll start by sharing the deck, the presentation that I've created. I hope everyone can see it.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, yeah, let me sorry this place. Okay. All right. So today's session is all about interviews, right? Like you said, uh, this season is going on for a lot of interviews, and people have a lot of doubts in how to position themselves for an interview, right? uh, there are a lot of things that goes into an interview, be it applying for the job, be it giving the actual interview, or doing the case studies, or getting the final offer. A lot goes into all of these stages, and I'm trying to take you through each of these stages one by one and give you my insights, my experience on how to handle these situations that will optimize the way you perform, that will optimize the way you handle the job offers, that will also help you how to apply and how to filter out the roles that you actually want to go and apply for, right? So these are the secrets behind pitching yourself. I'm Rahul Agrawal. I'm a senior data analyst at Majid Al Futtaim, which is majorly a retail focused company in Dubai. Again, I'm a student at IIT PS, and I'm in the final year, hopefully to complete it in the next semester, the upcoming semester. And I'm also upcoming student at the executive MBA degree at IIM Kozhikode. I have about 14 years of experience into different domains, be it healthcare, be it retail, be it telecom. I've seen my fair share of companies. I have uh, given and taken a lot of interviews, and all that experience that I hold in these last 14 years, this is basically the crux of it. Obviously, this is going to be a 1 hour session, so I'll not be able to include each and every aspect of what I've gone through, but I've tried to give you a summary that will actually help you in order to crack everything that you face. Okay, so the content I've tried to give minutes to each and every topic depending on the weightage of or importance of these topics. But obviously, these will change during the session depending on how where my mind goes while I'm giving the session. Okay, so the important part of the session is that you know whether this session is actually for you or not. Uh, Overall, this session is for everyone who is preparing for an interview, but most notably, there are some objectives and target audience that I have kept in mind in order to design this entire session. right? So this the objective of this session is to help you prepare for interviews. It will help you to position yourself while you are doing the interviews, while you are applying for it, and it will also help you understand how the companies think, how the interviewers think while making and hiring decision, while they are selecting your portfolio or your profile for the offered role, right? So the target audience is students, obviously you guys, or people who have less than 3 years of experience, right? Anyone who is more than 3 years of experience, you will find there is a lot of helpful topics that I cover. However, it will not be an optimal solution for you because you'll be going through a lot more variables than a student or a beginner. Right. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. Let's go ahead. And the first thing that we do while we are preparing for the interviews, while we are applying, right? You have to evaluate what you are applying for, right? Uh, Everyone as a student has a goal. Everyone as a beginner has a goal. For example, do you want to become a data scientist or someone who is closer to a data scientist, right? Be it data analyst, be it BI engineer, be it data engineer, any role that you prefer is basically your personal goal, right? And there are some personal preferences that we actually end up looking at, right? So, for example, people tend to look at work timings, right? So if you are a person who is not interested in any kind of role which starts at 2 a.m. in the morning, right, obviously you'll not be applying for it, right? So these I've taken five major pillars that you can call your personal goals. Like while you are applying or while you are thinking about applying for a position, there are few things that you actually take a look at. One is skills, second is money, growth, culture, and work-life balance, right? Obviously, it's not just one thing that you look at. It could be a combination of more than one personal goals that you want to look at while you are applying for a job role, right? Now, in a job, in the offered position, each of these personal goals map to a different kind of value proposition that the job offers, right? So skills could be soft skills, it could be core technical skills, it could be hard skills or functional. What does it mean? Hot skills are anything which is currently making disruptive trends, right? For example, AI and Gen AI, right? So if you want to master that and there is a position there, right, you would be more likely to apply for it, right? uh, what I normally tell people is you don't go apply to anything which makes sense to you, right? You have to value the interviewer's time. You have to value your own time as well, right? So before you apply for a job, you have to make sure, you have to ensure that I have a better chance than most people in that job. And that happens in two ways. One, you are really interested in that role. You are not just taking space for someone else's interest, right? And the people who are hiring will actually take an interest, right? Obviously you know about your interest, but you will not know what kind of person the company is looking for, right? So what you do is you normally go into the job description, the company profile, if possible the person who is hiring their profile, and you take out different value propositions that the job offers, right? So monetary, like if the job offers a lot of money, okay, but it is in the form of shares or perks or facilities, it's up to your personal choice whether you want to go for the actual money or you want to go for facilities, right? Facilities could be anything. It would include a table tennis in your cafeteria, right? So anything that falls under that kind of facilities, which you most likely look at as money, then it becomes a monetary value proposition for you. Growth, whether you want to move vertically or laterally, if you are already have a job, if you're doing any kind of work in any kind of company, right? Are you looking for reputation, right? For example, me versus as one intern at ISRO, right? Who has more reputation? You would obviously look at the person who is coming from ISRO. Even I would do the same thing, right? No matter my position, no matter where I stand, right? Exposure. right? So a lot of people I have seen take exposure as the main factor for deciding to apply for a job. Exposure could be global or geographical location change. It could be if you're offered, for example, after 1 or 2 years, you're going to go, you have a chance to go abroad, right? That could basically outweigh everything else, right? You will not be looking at money if you really want to go somewhere outside India or any other place that you like, right? Culture. So diversity, what is the motto of the company, whether the company is employee centric or customer centric, these things will come fall under the culture pillar, right? And you would like to see how the company basically manages their work culture. So do you want to be a part of it or not, right? Work life balance, what is the work timing, how do you travel to the office, do you travel at all or not, right? Leaves, the healthcare, right? I've given sources of information from where you can actually find all these things, and basically do your own research before applying for a job, right? It may look like a lot of work for just thinking about applying for a job, but if you look at the big picture, you're not only applying for a job, you are applying for a career, right? So it must be respected, and you must have to give it a little time in order to understand, do I really want to go and apply for this position, right? Now, your personal preferences, whether they are equals to or not equals to your the positions that is offering, the value that it offers you, it that basically is the deciding factor whether you want to actually apply for it or not, right? So your goal uh, could be a data driven approach or a hunch based approach, right? The simple example is, you take each of the value that the offer is sorry, the job is being offered at, right? And you give it a score, and you create a composite score out of everything, and that becomes your data driven approach, right? Do you want to give more weightage to money, do you want to give more weightage to skills, right? If I take just these two values, it will basically give you a score that you want to look at, and you want to decide whether I actually want to apply for it or not, right? This is my perspective on how you would actually go ahead and apply for a job. Obviously this is not the reality, right? The reality is, we look at the job, we like it, and we don't have a job, we simply apply for it, right? This is also fine. However, it does not optimize your chances to get the job, right? Because if you're not interested in a profile, there are chances that you will not be doing the hard work that it actually requires to get the job. Okay. An example. So I've taken a screenshot of a LinkedIn profile. Okay, so I wanted to give you how I actually would go ahead and read the job description, and which actually think about whether should I apply for it or not, right? So if you look at the job summary, it says we are looking for a data analyst with strong SQL skills to analyze large data set and provide actionable insights. 3 points. It's a data analyst with strong SQL. They are not looking for Python, at least in the first sentence, right? They are looking for someone who can analyze large data sets, right? Large data sets is something that is used quite common right now, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is big data. You might not be working with the cloud, you might be only working with the SQL, right? Actionable insights, so they actually want you to work on the data to give some sort of insights into the data that can be actually converted to an action, right? I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure if you can ask questions during the session, but if you have questions, please post it. I'll try and answer at the end of the session. Okay.
Yes,
uh,
sir. Actually, the audience members, if they have any questions related to the topic or what you are teaching,
mhm.
they will post the questions on the chat. We have made a document and we'll collect all those questions and present them to you at the end. So you can
Okay,
go on.
very nice, very nice, thank you. Okay, the ideal candidate will have experience in data analysis and strong understanding of SQL. Okay, now you might look at data analysis as one of the keywords, but what I'm looking at is SQL, right? They have used SQL twice within job summary, right? That means that they are actually looking for someone who knows SQL really well, right? So if you're a person who likes SQL, who is experienced or somewhat interested in learning SQL, then you are the right candidate for the job, right? Experience with Python or any data visualization tool is a plus, right? So they are not looking at Python as a scripting language, they are looking at Python as a data visualization tool, right? Or, right? So that helps you to collate your understanding about the job summary. So someone has written it after looking at the requirements of the company, and what they're looking for is someone who knows SQL, and that's it, right? Other visualization tool, if you know, it's a good. If no, then it's fine, right? Unless you prove that you are very good at SQL, there is no need to go further into anything else, right? But you also want to look at key responsibilities, what you will be actually doing, right? So does it match with your preferred roles or come close to it, right? Do you want to become an SQL developer who is titled as data analyst, right? That's the basic meaning of this summary, right? Do I really wish to do these things? Am I excited to learn these things? Do I really wish to learn these things, right? These questions are important. They may look very trivial to you right now if you are actually starting, but mark my words, it is very important that you understand this job role very clearly so that you can ask questions during the interview that will solidify your uh, chances of getting selected or at least be interested in, right? Qualification is something that you have no control over. However, uh, if you match with at least 70-80% of the qualification, you are good to go. You can actually apply. Do not think that you will be able to match the qualifications 100% every time, right? It is a game of probability, right? If you are better than most, then you are qualified, right? Okay, I hope this slide made sense to you, and this is basically the section where I deal with whether you should actually apply for the job or not, and whether you are willing to give all your hard work, all your interest in this job. That basically is the deciding factor, right? Whether you will be doing the a good job during the interviews or not, right? I hope it makes sense. Okay. Now, after you have gone through the JD, you also want to look at what the company is all about, right? So uh, this is my perspective on companies. What do they look at while they are hiring? Right. So I broadly categorized companies into two parts. So you can call it them smaller companies or bigger companies. The official words is startups, firms, one-person companies, or national and international companies like MNCs. What is their focus? Startups, they want to get things done right, and they want to do it fast, right? So if you are a very small company, you don't want to do like a process, right? Getting documentation done, take a week to do a small code change, things like that, right? Their focus is to get things done because they are time pressed, because the investors are lying around. They are putting pressure on the people who are running the company. They want to get things done, right? The culture, of course, because of this, the culture changes very fast, right? They're deciding on tools very fast. They are using the tools. You have to learn the tools very fast. But also it comes with a perk, which is growth, right? You can demand for decent growth within the startups or firms that are relatively small, right? If you do the required work, right? And obviously it depends on the companies and the managers what is qualified as good work, right? Work life balance, this is actually same for both startups and MNCs. It depends on who your manager is, what is the company culture, and what is your nature of work, right? I'll give you example of nature of work. Manager and company culture, I think, should be fairly obvious, right? Nature of work, if you're working in a steel manufacturing company, you know there is a furnace that cannot stop no matter there is holidays or not, right? In that scenario, it's very hard to say that you will have a work life balance, right? But if there is a company which is let's say a product based company, Google, Microsoft, or any other company, right? They will have a work life balance because they work only on weekdays, right? I don't think they work on weekends, but again, there are instances where your manager or company would require you to work on off hours because of some urgent nature of the work, right? Skills. startups are very flexible in terms of you having the skills that they actually require. What they are looking at, someone who can actually learn really fast, right? Because they are changing their technology, they are changing their ways every time, right? So they want someone who is adaptable, right? All these things are actually opposite in the MNCs, except work-life balance, right? So in MNCs, the focus is on process. They are process driven. Their culture is very formal, very professional. You go to the office, you're relaxed, you have work assigned to you, you start planning for it, you start doing it. There's a back and forth with the manager, right? And these things come under culture and focus of the companies, right? Obviously it has its own merits, but there are some cons too, which is growth, right? Unless you have a position available, there will be very limited growth unless you are trying for different teams within the companies, right? If you're really working hard for it, if you go out of the box, if you think out of the box, then your growth will be fairly rapid. Otherwise it will be very stable. Every 2 3 4 years you will get one promotion. Every year you will get single or double digits growth. All these things are there, right? So this is a very long slide. It has a lot of text into it. I don't want you to read all of this, but what I want you to understand is there is a fair and large difference between the thinking of these companies. And once you know about these things, it will actually help you to prepare for the role, right? If it is a startup, you will have to convey a message that you are actually hardworking, you can learn very fast. If you are applying for an MNC role in an MNC, then you will be looked at different angles. One of them is skills, and other thing is your professionalism. Adaptability is also a part of it, but it will not outweigh the other things that are mentioned here, right? I hope this will give you some insights into what companies think when they are actually posting a job, when the interviewers are actually taking your interviews, right? Okay, so positioning yourself effectively based on the role. So this is like the core of the entire session, right? This is where you will actually find out where you have the most chance in order to effectively position yourself so that you stand out, right? Uh, so I'll give you an example. If you apply for a role, depending on the role, depending on the position, there are hundreds to thousands of people who actually apply for the role, right? So how can you make sure that you are actually different, right? How can you make sure that you are actually selected in each and every stages, right? So the first thing is resume, right? Your resume speaks about you, right? So I'll not talk about a lot of things here. What I'll give you is very specific pointers. So when it comes to resume, if you are applying for a data analyst job or a data scientist job, right, your resume should reflect it, right? So it should actually show you that you are a data analyst and you have done projects that are related to data analyst, right? Uh, all right. Right. So you have to work hard in order to create resumes that are specific to the roles that you are interested in. Right. So you don't go ahead and create a resume for every job that you apply. You will create general resumes which are very specific to the roles. Right. For example, there are two companies. Let's say they both offer data scientist role, and you have a data scientist resume. Right. I'll talk to you about different resumes and different roles in a second. So, after reading the job description, you understand that this data scientist role is a broader role. It requires for you to learn SQL and Python both, right? The other one is Python specific only, and they are talking about machine learning models and everything, right? So in the first one, you generally focus on your skills in general and your projects in general, right? In the other one, you have to specify the machine learning models that you have actually applied and what are the effects of those projects, right? So from implementation to from inception to implementation, what was your role, and how actually you how much value did that project give, is something that the second job will focus at, only for machine learning models, because the job description said so, right? So this is the first pointer. The second one is your flow of resume. So basically, do you want to start with the projects, or do you want to simply write your education qualification, right? So it depends on the role you're applying for. Again, I'll give you an example. If you are applying for let's say an internship in the academy, in the like IIT itself, right? They might focus more on your education qualification. I'm not giving an actual example, it could be different, right? But logics tells me that they will actually look at your education qualification rather than your experience, right? So you might want to start with your education. There are companies who will actually look at your projects first. They don't care about your education, whether you are a graduate, postgraduate, whether you are someone who has a lot of degrees, PhDs, and all, right? They want to look at the projects that you have done and how they actually can be used within their own organization, or how they relate, right? So that they can create a relation between you and the offered role, right? So you have to think about these things when you are uh, entering the projects that you have done in the resume. Obviously, I'm not saying that you should lie on your resume, but if you have done any project and you can tweak the words in a way that will actually connect with the offered role, that will be a great thing, right? People will tend to look at it. Interviews, right? That's the second stage where you are actually able to position yourself very effectively, right? So what I normally do when I prepare for the interviews, I research the position on LinkedIn, on Naukri, ChatGPT, the description itself. I want to basically analyze what kind of position is this, what will be the responsibilities that I'll be taking over, right? And based on it, I'll prepare some very focused questions, right? For example, if you are applying for Majid Al Futam, which is majorly a retail based company, you will be asked questions on retail related questions, right? For example, how would you increase the footfall in a mall, right? That is a question that they will generally ask, like in most of the interviews, because they have shopping malls, people are entering in the malls, and the direct proportion of the footfalls reflects the amount of sales that a mall has, right? So they generally want to increase the footfall. How could you do it? Could you offer some sort of discount as soon as you walk in the mall? All those things, right? So you have to practice interview questions that are specific to that company, to that role, right? I also do one thing which is rare, but I try and find data sets related to that company on Kaggle, sorry, related to that industry. Obviously, you will not find data sets for the company, but you will find similar data sets to that company in the same industry. You will look at those data sets and you create your own interview questions, right? You will think about how the interviewer will think and ask you questions, and what actually makes sense to them, right? And then the final thing that you do where you can actually position yourself is a case study or a project or a presentation that they want you to create, right? Most people will look at the case, the problem statement, and what they are going to do. I'll give you a very brief story. Here is a problem statement. You will have 7 days or 2 days to do this, right? Being lazy as I am, I'll not look at the problem statement. I'll wait for the next day if it is a 2 day uh, timeline. So I'll not look at it the first day, I'll look at it the second day. And then I realized that I have actually not understood the question. And now I'm a little hesitant to ask questions because it's already past 50% of the time, right? So my suggestion or advice in these matters would be immediately go through the problem statement, immediately go through the data set they have given, if they have given anything, create a list of questions. Okay, no matter how stupid the question may sound, jot them down. Okay, think about all these questions, whether they actually make sense, and are these questions intelligent questions, right? uh, you'll not be asking, can I submit an Excel sheet if there is already written that it is allowed, right? You'll not be asking those questions. right? You have to ask intelligent questions. Do I do something with the date if it is like this? I see different date formats. Do you want us to fix it, or is it expected to work on different date formats? Like anything which remotely makes sense to you, okay, should go as a list of questions to the interviewers, to the people who are giving you the project, and those people will be very happy to answer. And I'll tell you why. Because they will understand that you are actually interested in the project. You are giving a lot of your time in order to understand the project, right? So you're already creating positive points in the mind of the interviewer, right? They will know, okay, this person was actually asking questions, so I'm expecting something out of it, right? They will be very interested in interviewing you also, right? Now, when you create the project, normally you speak a story. Okay. Don't go ahead and say, I took the data, I did correlation analysis, I did this, I did this. No, no, no. Never do it like this. You have to present a story. You have to think that the interviewer doesn't know anything about maths, science, data science, machine learning, nothing. You have to speak in a way that you can explain it to a child, maybe, right? You are doing this, you are doing that. There shouldn't be any mention of very uh, long jargons, right? You will not say that I applied standard deviation on this data set and I found this. No, you will say I found this based on a statistic or statistical metric, right? Something like that, that will make the listener easy. Listening's easy, right? So I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, this makes sense. I don't have to think about, oh, what is standard deviation, right? If you can convert your statements to very simple statements, that will make an impact, right? Obviously, I'm not giving you a lot of examples into each of these things because of the time, but I hope you would make most out of it when you are actually doing the interviews, when you're doing the presentation and all. Okay, resume structure example from the previous slide, specific resume for specific roles, the flow of the resume. The next slide is the example of the flow of resume. Okay, so I've taken very little, screenshots of different resume structures, right? This resume is education first, this resume is experience first, and this is profile first, right? So education and experience make sense, right? That if the role offered is education heavy or experience heavy, you will choose one of these things. What is profile first? Okay, do not go to the actual content. This is useless content, right? The flow matters, right? Profile first is for the job offers that will actually highlight what you are doing as a data analyst or data scientist, right? Experience tells that you have done this in these years in this company. But profile first basically give a summary to the interviewer, to the person who is looking at your resume, and say, okay, this person is someone who has extensive experience into machine learning models, and he is interested in SQL, in Python, and he is looking forward to do this kind of work, which resonates with the profile offered, right? I would advise most of the roles that are offered will go with the profile first, okay? Unless you have a lot of experience and your profile is your experience, right? Let's say 10 years, 14 years, like me, okay? I don't spend enough time to create a profile statement, okay? My experience would be enough in most of the cases. But obviously, I'm not saying that after so many years of experience you go ahead and take it lightly, right? i have uh, I have seen fair share of rejection in the interviews, right? So I don't want anyone to go through those rejections, right? Hopefully this will help you. Communication essentials for interviews, right? Okay, so when you hear the word communication, a lot of us will think about English 1 and English 2 from the first year, right? From the foundations, enunciation, pronunciation, verb, adjectives, nouns, and all, right? This is not that slide. Okay, I'll not be telling you how you would speak, right? What what words would come first, what words could come later. It's not that. Okay, My this statement is something that I bring to the table. Communication is directly proportional to clarity of thought. Okay, so I'll give like 1 minute to explaining what this is. Right? If you are asked a question and you can think very clearly, this is where I will start, this is how I will process, and this is where I will end. 50% of your job is already done because you have clarity of thought. You can start and end without glitches. You don't doubt yourself while you are giving an answer, right? You are very clear what you want to convey. Okay, how do you convey is a different story. That is the actual language barrier or your actual communication, but this is not that. Okay, this is the 50% part where you are very clear what you are asked and how you will answer it, how you will structure it, what are the different types of questions, what are the different types of answers, right? So, types of questions. You have a lot of types of questions, but I've selected like 5 of them so that you understand how you would think about these questions. Introductory questions. Basically, how are you? Describe yourself. All these kind of questions will be introductory. Situation based, you are put in a situation and you are asked to get out of it if it is a bad situation, or how would you deal in a good situation, and so on, right? For example, there is a fight between you and your manager. How will you tackle that situation? That is situation based. The other one is business or logical cases. This is a separate slide altogether, so I'll put my efforts on that slide for this type of questions. Mildly technical or tool related question. So if I ask you, how would you sum entire column A in Excel, right? That's a tool related question, and it is mildly technical also, right? You cannot say that you will simply do sum, right? You will say that you will start by summing. You will start with the sum function and you will select the entire column A, then you close the brackets, and then that's the sum, right? There is a very specific way that you will answer it depending on the role that you are applying for, or the role that you are interviewed for. But there is no there is either right or wrong answer. It's not subjective. Either you know it or you don't know it, right? And then subjects are related. So maths and stats you already know. So there could be a question like, how would you calculate a median out of a given list of numbers, right? So those questions are subject related, right? Depending on what kind of question you are asked, and depending on the clarity of thought that you will have different types of answers. Okay, so think about these. Pyramid structure. Pyramid structure is a top down or bottom up approach of answering a question, where you start with the actual answer first and then you support that answer with related facts. Okay, for example, the median of the given list is 5. How would I arrive at this number is, I sorted the list, I took the middle two or one number depending on the odd even case, and I gave you the number, right? So you have given the answer first, and then you are trying to justify your answer by giving the related facts, right? You could do it otherwise. So you can start with, I will first sort the numbers, and I'll look whether the length is even or odd. Depending on that, I'll take the first middle two numbers or the middle number, and then I'll give you the median, right? So that is the pyramid structure for you. How it would help you? It will help you to frame your answer properly. It will help you with the clarity of thought. Very, very important, because people who are interviewing you will definitely know whether you know the answer or not, no matter how much you try. Pure communication based. So introduction and situational based questions are mostly uh, communication heavy answers, right? What they will be judging you is based like how would you actually frame your sentences, whether you are good at it or not, whether you can think clearly while answering the question, can you go with the flow, right? So if I'm speaking for the last half an hour, okay, without fumbling, that means I have some clarity what I need to convey to you guys, right? You would notice that initially there was some disruptions in my speech, because start always is a tricky part, right? I'm speaking to you now very fluently, hopefully, right? Because I have more control over the situation now. I know that I have already started. I'm in the middle. I have done uh, decent enough, at least for me, right? Then you have outcome based. So outcome is what is, for example, I'll give you a question. So let me outcome and example. Okay, outcome and example based question are relatively similar, where you have to focus on the final outcome. Okay, so if I ask you a logical question, tell me how would you take some material which is very heavy and deliver it to a different country, right? So that is an outcome based question. You have to basically define a process that you will take care of the logistics, you will take care of the people who are actually required, you will have to get the machinery in order to lift it, you will have to select the logistics, you have to select whether it should go via airways or waterways, right? And then the outcome is that you have done your job. There is a defined process and you will follow this process to take the material to its destination. Example based mostly go with the technical and subjects, right? So tell us, I have some examples also, yeah. So example based here is, how does regression analysis help in business forecasting, right? So here this question not only is asking how it helps, they're also asking, can you or have you actually used regression analysis in your experience in your academics, and how it relates to the job being offered. If you can give an example that is directly usable in their company, that means you have created an impact, right? So these questions basically are examples of different kinds of answers and different kinds of questions. I'll not be going through them. I'll be sharing the deck anyways, so you can go through them later. Okay, insights into the general questions. Okay, so based on your experience, you might find that when someone is asking you a question, okay, it might not make sense, but they have like a reason behind asking that question, right? And the reasons are mostly they want to listen to you and think about how you actually speak, how you frame answers, right? Are you someone who can simply hear the question and start answering, okay, without clarifying your doubts? Okay, I'll give you an example in the next slide about this. It's a very important point, how they come up with the questions, right? So when I start interviewing, there are different ways I do it. So first is I Google, right? So if you also Google the questions for that interview, there is a very good chance that you will find some questions on various websites where they list out interview questions, right? But that's not the place where you should end up, right? That's not the only place you should end up, right? You have to think about what is being done in the industry, what is being done in that job role after researching it, and you become your own interviewer and ask yourself questions, right? For example, machine learning models, right? What are the different types of models? Where do I use them? Is there a real place or an example that I can look at where I find an actual use of this model in the industry I'm applying for? For example, telecom, right? In telecom, we have special cases that I looked at. I have never worked on it, but I'll give you an example. A telecom company would offer you the infrastructure, for example, physical phones, the Ethernet cables in your office, right? And you want to basically figure out in how many months or years will I see my first fault, right? So that becomes a sort of time series question, that looking at the history of the devices being failed first, I want to take an average of it somehow. Okay, I'm not giving you an actual machine learning model, but you would like to find out what is the trend, right? What is the distribution of that trend and where you might actually find the first fault, right? Based on that, if you have a very large business, based on that, what you could do is you can actually create an inventory, right? You can actually think about how many phones or how many Ethernet cables should I have in my inventory in order to fulfill all these needs on time. That will optimize your inventory, that will optimize your customer satisfaction, right? So, and what do they expect from us? They expect the right answers, of course, but what they actually expect is that your answer should make sense, right? If it is not correct, that's a different story. But what they are looking for is someone who is bold enough to ask them questions back, right? If I give you a question that does not make sense to you, and if you can ask me questions so that that question makes sense to you, is what we expect from you as an interviewer, right? I hope that line made sense. It was a very complicated line. Okay, approach to technical questions. So there's a lot that you can do in technical questions, because it's my way or highway, right? So in tools you have very specific answers. In code you have multiple ways, but depending on the position, uh, there are differences, right? So if there is a position which is of senior technical role, right, you might want to look at error handling, you might want to look at optimal code, you might want to look at the best way to write the code. It is indented properly, it is commented properly. But when you're beginning, right, the code should simply run, right? No one is looking at error handling, no one is looking at optimal solutions. They just want to know that you can actually code and achieve the results, right? Tools is a very different story. Either you know it or don't know it. I would advise that if you know it, you answer. If you don't know, you simply move on. Okay. Don't try and guess. Okay. It makes a very wrong impression. Okay. Especially when you're doing it multiple times. Once or twice is it's fine. Multiple times, it's not a very good sign. uh, when you are being asked a technical question, you need to clarify: do I need to write a logic? Do I need to write a pseudo code? Or do I actually write the code? Right? You must be ready with a notepad or a IDE, right? Code editor or something, uh, where you can actually start writing the code. Right? In the recent interviews that I've taken, I've seen that people are using AI, right? Copilot in their IDEs, and they start simply writing the code, right? It should not happen that way, right? You are, if you are applying for a coding positions, you already know that you have something like this. And in an interview, you are not to use ChatGPT, right? If you can, it's a good thing. But if you are not allowed, you should know how to turn it off, right? All these things should be practiced well in advance. Okay. Uh, this is something that I've talked about before also, but when you are dealing with technical questions, mostly you will handle some sort of data in that interview, right? So based on the industry you're applying, try and find different data sets that relate to that industry. Okay. And find out the KPIs or metrics that are used in that industry, and use those metrics and KPIs to uh, make your codes. For example, if you are going in a telecom company, and if you are looking at a product which is let's say an app on your phone, right? A very important factor is active users: monthly, weekly, yearly, daily, right? So they want to look at how many people out of total customer base the the customers are actually opening the app, right? So if out of 1 million customers, only 10% of that customer base is actually opening the app, that becomes a major negative, right? Out of 100 customers, only 10 are opening the app. Why is that? Can we change it, right? So that KPI helps the industry in order to follow something, and the action plan that actually increase that 10% to 20, 30, 40, 90, 100, right? So you will have to find ways to get the data set. That's the hard work that you'll have to do. And then you find the metrics also, and then you learn about those metrics. Read about the interviewers whenever possible. It's very important. If you can, short of stalking the person, I would suggest that you know everything about the interviews. Obviously you will not know about the interviewers every time, but if you get the chance, read their LinkedIn profiles, find them on Facebook, look at their Instagram profile. I guarantee there is at least 5 to 10% of the interview questions that you will know about the like the interview is going to ask. You'll know about those questions, at least 5 or 10% of them. All right. So you would know if the person has gone to large multinational companies like Google or Facebook. You know that they're going to be very logical centric questions, right? If you know the person is coming from Rahul Industries, right? Not so much, right? So you will see that they're asking questions from the Google itself, right? After searching technical questions, right? So you can find these differences, and based on these differences, you can prepare for the interviews. Tackling logic based questions and guesstimates. Okay, this is special for beginners, because I have never seen a beginner. I've seen one beginner who actually tried to guess and got the answer, but it was not with a very good flow, right? These are very important questions, because most of the hiring people look at this as the deciding factor, because it serves as a single metric for your logic, for your brain, how it works, right? I'll give you two examples of these questions, and I will give you some sort of insights on how you will actually answer these questions, right? But first, if you are asked a logic based question or a guesstimate, or some people call it Fermi based questions, okay, clarify the question. Okay, what do I mean by clarify? You go ahead, rephrase the questions on how you understood it. Okay, you speak it back and you confirm from the interviewer. You get a confirmation that is my understanding correct about the questions. Very, very important. Ask drilling questions to solidify your understanding, right? If you are asked a question and you are clear on what the question was, right, there are still things that you don't understand about the situation that is being given, right? So you ask drilling questions as in clarifying questions, so that you understand all the cases about it, right? So for example, if I ask you what is a median, like that's not a guesstimate question, but I'm just giving you an example on drilling questions, right? If I'm asking you to create a code for median, right, you will be asking, is there a possibility that I could get an empty list of numbers? Is there a possibility that I could get a string instead of a list of numbers? Right? All these are very uh, decent and logical questions to ask, because you do not know what the interviewer has in mind, right? And if you ask these questions, they will have an impression that you not only know how to answer, you also know how to think of different issues. Very, very important, right? If you have gotten all the information, still it's not complete. There are a lot of assumptions that you will end up making. Those assumptions should not be random. There has to be some sort of explanation. Okay, I'll give you an example. What is the population of Dubai, right? If you do not know the actual population, or you have never seen anywhere what could be the population of Dubai, you will assume some random number. Okay, but you will also say that you will have to explain that since I do not have any kind of information about the Middle Eastern countries, right, I am taking a random number right now, but we can plug the actual number once we get the actual information, right? So you have to explain that you are picking at random, but it was not a random decision, right? Keep pen and paper with you always. Very important. I know this is very boring, and even if you have a digital pad that you can use in order to write it, I'll still suggest that you keep pen and paper with you, right? Because there are chances that they will see digital pads as somewhere from where you can Google the answers and all, right? Pen and paper feels good. It helps you to focus. It helps you to create notes. It also helps you to jot down the questions that are being asked, so that you can think about them later if you were not able to answer them, or how you can actually answer them properly. Okay, so here goes the first question, right? Point out possible issues when sending items from country A to country B, right? So that's my question to you for an interview, right? How would you even think about this, right? So I want you to imagine a map, or sorry, a tree, right? A decision tree. You have one point, right, at the top, which is the question: possible issues when sending items from country A to B, right? The first logical questions that I was able to think about, obviously, there are multiple ways to think about it. This is my version of the answer. The the next question I will ask: am I sending a personal item or is it related to a company? Right? Are we sending items, a lot of items for a company? Am I a logistic company, okay, who is solving this problem, or am I a single person who is sending item just like one time, right? Is the item perishable or not? Okay, are you sending ice cream to a different country? Obviously, you will need to have a cooler, right, so that it doesn't melt. Or you put it in a container where even if it melts, it doesn't, uh, you know, get spilled over, right? If is the item a medicine, right? Does it need to be cooled or not? What is the nature of that item, right? That's the next logical question, right? Size of the item, is it like a large plane that I'm sending, right? Obviously I'll not be able to use a different plane to send a plane unless it's a very small plane, right? Right. Or are you sending a toy? Are you sending an illegal item or an item that requires an approval from the government to send to country B, right? Or approval from the country A, from the government of the country A, in order to send it, right? This is, you might feel that this is a very trivial issue, okay? Who's going to ask you this question, okay? But it's not about you seeing this question as a useless question. It's about how you think about these questions and how you actually come up with an answer, right? So industry or personal, personal type of item, size of item, life of item. What is the goal of sending this, right? Is it a personal thing or is it company thing? Is it something else? Is it a life or death kind of situation, right? Or is it general business as usual, what we call it, right? Are there any legal issues in sending the item, right? So what, and once you have this, okay, now think of the trajectory that I took. Clarify the question, okay? I will basically speak the same question back to the person, and in the meantime I'll ask this question as well, whether it is industry related or personal item, right? Ask drilling questions. These are drilling questions which actually helps you to identify what kind of situation you are looking at, so that you can find out the possible issues. Now you will go ahead and try and answer it, okay? So there will be logical assumptions, right? Country A to country B, right? There are three major points: taking the item from country A to the border of the country A, then border of country A to border of country B, and then border of country B to the actual destination, right? At each of these three stages, you will have to identify whether you are sending the item via airways, waterways, if available, or roadways, right? Are you going to pick up large trucks, small trucks, or a normal e-rickshaw would also work, right? Obviously from country to country, like within the country, right? Obviously from country A to country B, e-rickshaw will not work, but yeah, you understand the point, right? These are logical assumptions, right? These are general assumptions, right? You could also say that the item is being sent from port A to port B. That means there is only one way, either waterways or airways, but there's only one stage of sending the item, right? These are the logical assumptions that you will create, okay? Now based on the answers of these questions, whether there were any legal issues, what type of item is it, perishable or not, you will choose the transport method and transport vehicle, right? Whether you want to have a cooling unit to store the item and take it on a plane and send it as quickly as possible, or is it some item like a toy or soap, right, which is not going to be bad even for months. So you possibly choose waterways and send it, right? So even if it takes 1 month, there's no hurry, right? Keep pen and paper with you always. So that point is being used in the entire explanation, right? So once you are explaining, once you are clarifying the questions, when you are making the assumptions, you will note them down, right? So if someone asks you, so it is port A to port B, you basically delete everything else and you uh, jot down the points that it is only one stage instead of 3 stages of sending the item, right? All these will create a what, a list of issues, okay, that you can possibly get while you're sending an item from A to B, right? Remember, you can be very logical in clarifying the questions, but unless the actual question is not being answered, there is no point, right? It actually helps you uh, to uh, the interview think that you have the clarity of thought, you have the logical base that it is required to answer this question, right? I have this also. What could be the reason for a sudden dip in sales in manufacturing company? Right. I have only 1 minute, so I'll focus on it very fast. Okay. So when you're working for a manufacturing company and there is a dip in sales, again, think about the tree. You have a manufacturing company. There is a dip in sales. What are the logical uh, route from there, right? So sales could dip from both sides, either supply or demand. Either people are not buying it or you are not able to manufacture enough product, right? So it becomes a supply or demand side issue. Depending on which issue is it, you will have to ask different questions and get the answer, okay? So if it is a supply side issue, that means there is something wrong with the manufacturing. So is it something related to the workforce or something related to the machinery that you're using, right? Again, based on the answer, you will go deeper, drill the interviewer on what you think, uh, divide and conquer, basically, right? So you take the major parts, you say, is the issue with this part or this part? In this part, is it this part or this part? And that becomes your decision tree, and that will give you the actual reason that the interview has already thought about, okay? Another thing, when these kind of questions are asked, right, interview already has a point or already know about the issue, okay? For example, the issue was in one area in one machinery, okay? So that was the answer that I knew already. What you have to do is you have to ask me questions that will actually reach that conclusion, right? So it depends on the question how you would actually frame your drilling questions, right? The first one is general, the second one is more specific. You actually have to drill the interviewer, ask them questions so that you know about the answer properly, right? I hope uh, this actually helped you to, think about how you will apply, how you will frame your answers, how you will, frame or structure your resume, how you will think about the questions, what kind of different questions you can ask the interviewer. Never shy away asking questions. Okay, it is very important that you be bold. People are not looking for laborers, right? They are not looking for soldiers, right? You are not taking instruction and simply start doing it. No, you'll have to think back, you'll have to push back, you'll have to ask decent and logical questions, and based on those questions you will be given a very good rating, I'm sure of it, okay? So people like to hire people who can ask back, who can apply their own logic, their own brain in a situation. Okay, they don't want people who come, listen to something, start doing it without knowing about the consequences, without knowing the actual issues. Yeah, no one wants that. Okay, so you'll have to think very differently. uh, okay, this is the last slide where I'll share some of the tips and post-interview strategies. I may not have written all of them down because there is a lot, but I'll try and go through each one of them. Never end an interview without asking a questions. unless there is a time crunch. So basically at the end of the interview, okay, normally in 50% of the interviews you'll be asked whether you have a question or not. Never say no. Ask a question, prepare for that questions well in advance, right? But for some reason, if you are not able to, okay, make an end note of your experience that I don't have any questions because of the time. I'll ask the questions later, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I was able to think about different things, and I also own the mistakes that I made during the interview. So out of 10 questions, let's say I did not answer two of them, so you will identify that you were actually not able to do that. That means you are actually not saying that you did not do 20% of the questions. What you're saying is you actually did 80% of the things right? That leaves an expression. Okay, when asked for ratings, always do go for average ratings. So if I ask you how much would you rate yourself out of 10 in Python, okay, people tend to go 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's not how it works. Can you create a game in Python? Can you also do mm, Flask, Django, both at the same time? Can you do desktop level applications? No, obviously. It's a very vast language, general purpose language, right? You only know about the analysis of it. Okay, just one or two libraries, let's say 5 libraries out of hundreds, right? You can never rate yourself 8 or 9 out in Python. But if you're asked how much would you rate yourself in Python when it comes to data analysis, right? Then you can ask, then you can say that I am 8 or 9 because it's a very specific question, right? And you justify with the same reason, right? It's Python is a general purpose language used for various things. I only know data analysis, so I'll rate myself 5.5 in that related area, something like that. Get assets, not liabilities. Okay, so in my past experience, people have headphones. What they do is they put the microphones like this and they start answering, right? That's not a good way to do, right? So invest in your gadgets, right? I'm not saying that you go for Apple phones, Apple headphones. No, take good gadgets that fit your budget, that are best in class, and that do not distract you while you are giving the interviews, right? It's very important. Get a good headset, get, if possible, again fitting your budget, get good gadgets. Do not lie. Obviously, interviewer can tell whether you are lying or not. Okay, I know a few interviews where we discussed at length, like 1 hour or 2 hours, about some people who were trying to, you know, uh, get out of the questions and tell something else, right? uh, they were lying about what they did, okay, and that contradicted the next answer, right? All these things will happen. uh, we have seen fair share of interviewees in our time, so there's no way you can go around and tell a lie and be done with it. Okay, that's not going to happen. Understand this, that someone will pick it up, right? Do not lie. Simply say that you do not know the answer, move on. Okay, but also mention that you can actually learn it, right? You have that capability. Show your interest and show your values. So if you're in an interview, you simply answer the questions and be done with it. It's not a good sign, right? You'll have to show your interest in the position. You have to ask different questions. You have to show your excitement about the role. You have to showcase how much value you can give to this role. If it is a data analyst position, you tell that I know about the data analysis. The recent studies show that there is a very high demand in this position. I already know about a few things. I have helped people using my data analysis skills. Okay, something like that. Obviously, not a lie, but if you can do these things while you are, preparing for your interviews, preparing for your career, it's a very good thing, right? Showcase that, like, if you have done even the smallest thing and it is a good thing, showcase it. Don't shy away. And if you have done a very big thing, show it again, right? There's no harm in showcasing your value so that you are actually considered for the role, right? Okay, I think we are ready for the questions. I thank you all for being here to stay this late for this session. I hope everything made sense to you. I hope everything was as expected. If there are things that I have missed, I would like to do like another session for it if you guys are interested.
Sir, thank you so much for that enlightening session. Actually, we have overstepped the time limit for which we had scheduled this session. So if you're comfortable with taking questions, only then we'll proceed. So are you comfortable with taking questions?
Yeah, yeah, please, please.
Yeah. So first question we have is from Storade. He's asking, does CGPA matter?
Uh, in some cases, yes. So I know I'll give you an example. Infosys, I know they don't take students who have gaps in their academic career, and they do not take people who have less than 60%. Okay, so there are very less companies who actually look at your CGPA. Okay, but it depends on companies, right? I'll say you are missing out only 4 or 5% of the jobs because of your CGPA. Like rest of the jobs are totally fine.
Okay, sir. The next question, sir, is a question which I wanted to ask personally. Uh, I have given various interviews for societies, various societies and organizations, and I just wanted to ask, should we appeal to the human side of the interviewers for a personal touch, either in the starting or in the end of the interview, to separate us from the other candidates? I have done this in other interviews, society and organization interviews which I've given, and it seems to give me an edge over other candidates. So should we do this or should we not do
It depends. Sometimes overstepping in certain areas could actually be negative, right? So let's say your human side is being funny, right? So if you are cracking jokes in the interview, right, that will not create a good impression, right? But if you can make the interviewer smile once in a while, that's very good, right? So you have to pick and select which kind of qualities you are looking for. Okay, you have to stalking your interviewer will actually help, right? So if you look me at LinkedIn, I do not post a lot, right? If you look at Facebook, I do not paste a lot, right? So I do not post a lot, right? So you would know that I am a private person, right? In terms of social media, but when it comes to these kind of sessions, I'm very outspoken, right? So you would not know this side of me, but if you look at my profiles, you would know generally this guy is fine. Okay, we should not go ahead and do a lot of talking, right? If you can do and follow these things, I think any interview would be fine. So touch your human side, but not a lot.
that was that was really enlightening, sir. Actually, I generally start with this question, right? It must be very tiring to have all these interviews. So, are you something like that? So, is it fine or
So yes, they will be so if you are the last person for the interview, like out of, let's say I'm taking 10 interviews for the day, right? If you are the last person and the first person, you are fine. Okay, but in the middle, based on the previous interview experience, there will be some biasness. Okay, but a good interviewer will take this into account and try to be unbiased, right? But these are human things, these are very subjective things, so it depends on your interviewer, right? So there is some luck involved in it, okay, in my personal opinion. But generally, uh, unless you have driven the interviewer crazy, there shouldn't be anything to worry about, whether it is a mass interview or whether it was a single interview for the day.
understood, sir? The next question we have is, how do you justify your change in field of study during education or a mid-career switch to a different field? Like if we are pursuing a BTech first and then suddenly we go for a degree in completely, a field which is not relevant to technology, or if mid-career we are switching fields. So how do we justify that to an interviewer?
Okay, so see, few years back, I think in 2014 and 15, I also switched careers, right? So I was working in the workforce management, right? And then I saw that okay, data science is moving up. Let me do this, okay? And then my by the end of the course, my interest has switched to data analytics more, right? So these things are fairly common, Okay, interviewers will understand it, but if they have asked you a question, you should think about why actually you did it, right? Was it something about money? If yes, do not say that as an answer, right? You have to justify your own interest uh, while you are switching these things. So if, for example, me, I'm doing BS degree from here and I'm going to do an MBA at IIM, right? Why do I do it? Because I have a very specific goal in my mind. So this degree actually helped me bring the foundations, and now the next degree will actually help me implement it. So it could be a business thing, it could be a career thing. For example, this is just an example. I want to become a product owner, right? Product owner is someone who knows about the products but also knows about the strategy, so technical and business side, right? This degree helped me with the technical, but I also want to know about the customer side, the business side. The MBA will help me. Okay, but also personally I also did it for the money so that I can get more money, right? But that's not an answer that you should give, right? You have to showcase yourself as someone who is value driven, okay, not money driven, right? So showcasing yourself in an interview is, it's very important.
Well, well said, sir. I will keep that in mind. The next question we have is, what should we prioritize while applying for a job? Our resume or referrals? Because recently news is coming from, we are getting to know from many students that referrals are being considered more of importance than our resumes. So which should we value more, the resume or the referrals?
Depends on the position. So if the company is hiring freshers out of college, the referrals will not work, right? Because they are going to the college directly. But if I am in close touch with my manager and you give out your resume to me and I share it with the manager, I'll know immediately what he's going to think, whether he's going to shortlist you and whether you will have the interview or not, right? So this is not straightforward at all. But the general rules are, if you are giving your resume to someone who is experienced, okay, who is at a relatively higher position like lead or someone above, okay, then there is a very good chance that your resume will actually fall through because of the reference. Otherwise, someone who is just starting, there are referral programs within the company, but in my experience not a lot of them actually consider on portal referrals. They prefer referrals by hand, right? You're sending the email personally to the HR or to the manager that this is the guy or this is the girl that I want to actually refer for this particular position. That will actually bring out most of it. Simply on portal referrals will not, uh, I don't think they work properly. In some cases they do, but they are not a lot of examples of it.
Okay, sir. So we have 2 to 3 more questions, short questions. After that,
Please
we do
go
not
ahead.
want to keep you waiting here.
Please go ahead.
So next question is from Storade again. He's asking, he was in a project, but he did not handle the technicalities of the project and only switched through the managerial part of the project and handled the manpower. Then will that role justify his candidature of being selected as a man in consulting service? Because the project was technical, but he handled the managerial side.
Right. Okay. So if you're trying to start in consulting, okay, looking at the project from a broader perspective will actually help you to answer the guesstimate questions, right? But they will not help you when you're answering the technical questions, which could be a deciding factor, right? So it depends, right? So in consulting, depending on which company you're going for, you will be asked questions related to statistics, mathematics, right? They will be around for technical questions, and there will be a case round, right? In case round, if you have done well in your project, you will do good. In technical round, don't only think about your project. You have done the course itself, right? So you are not actually lacking anything in technical other than uh, if the case is that this is the only project that you have done, right? Unless you have not done anything else which is related to your technical side, it will be a negative, okay, during the interviews. But if you have done any kind of projects, you have done well in academics, there's nothing to worry about, right? Consulting is something that I have done briefly, okay, in my current role, and I do help support in consulting projects. It's a very good role, but also think about the complexity, the diversity of the role if you're applying for it, right? But if you are interested, if you're really into it, I think that's one of the best roles that you can actually do.
Okay, sir. Point taken. The next question we have is it worth practicing quantitative and qualitative aptitude questions for initial rounds of selection for data science job roles? Because we are increasingly seeing this trend of filtering the candidates through this qualitative and quantitative aptitude questions in the initial round. So is it worth our time? Is it worth our time to actually practice those kind of questions?
Absolutely. At every stage, uh, apart from applying for the actual role, okay, at every stage you will find it will be helpful. I'll give you reasons. When you are doing the actual written test, this is directly proportional to your practice in quantitative and logic based questions. When you are dealing with problem statements in the actual interview, be it technical, non-technical, guesstimates, logical questions, while you are answering these questions, your mind think about different ways of approaching the answer, right? That thinking actually helps you in answering non-technical, technical guesstimate questions, and that is a very uh, heavy deciding factor. Okay, so if you can practice it daily, I guarantee you will never fail. At least where you need to think about different things or different approaches to a question. So definitely go for it.
Okay, sir. Understood. We have our last question for the day. It is from Sordev again. He's asking if he can be hired in a totally non-tech position like consultancy or a business analyst with same remuneration coming from a completely technical background. So he has a technical degree, but he wants to go pursue consultancy or he wants to get hired for a business analyst or consultancy role. So can he pursue that field coming from a completely technical background?
uh, I think the answer to this question is actually what do you want to become, right? If you actually want to become a consultant, go for it. The degree will not stop you. Okay, there are billions of people in the world. Not everyone goes by their degree, right? When you were a student, when you started the degree, there were a lot of different factors affecting your life. Right now it is completely different, right? Choose what matters to you most now. Okay, do not look at the past. Do not think about your degree getting lost. Do not think about that everything will be lost or wasted, right? Everything will come back to you. Consulting positions are not non-technical. They are very technical. They are actually more than more technical than you can actually imagine, right? Most of your work goes into writing queries, analyzing data, and then getting the questions, right? Sorry, then getting the scenarios correctly, so that you can actually provide a solution, right? PDFs, PPTs come very late, right? In the entire process, technical comes first. So technical degree will definitely help you in non-technical related fields, but really it depends on what do you want to become. Do it.
Well, that was great advice, sir. Now, unfortunately, we won't be taking any more questions since we have already overstayed the specified time limit for the meeting by a good enough margin. So, thank you
Mhm.
so much, sir, for the wonderful session. It
No
was
problem.
really enlightening to learn from an expert like you who has navigated and succeeded in the data science industry. The
Thank you.
part where you mentioned that we need to ask questions like, do I really wish to learn and do these things? This is one question which I have observed personally that students who are just getting out of the college generally don't ask. They just jump into any job they get. Now that you have advised us, now we know what is the importance of this question, and I'm sure many students will take this aspect of a job, consider this before applying for a job. Also, asking questions from interviewer about problem statement, very clever psychological trick that I'll keep in mind the next time I'll go for an interview. Impression management. These things which you have taught me, I don't think I've learned these things anywhere else, and I don't think anyone else from the industry tells these industry hacks or tricks. So thank you so much for that, sir. Uh,
Glad
Thank you
I'm
so much for giving this session.
yeah.
We're delighted to have you.
Thank you so much, Sai. It was very nice. I was expecting actually a less number of people in the sessions, but I see there are a lot of people that join. So I'm glad that my experience helped you at least. Even if one student goes out and gets the interview through, like they get the job, even one student, that makes the session worthwhile. So thank you so much for uh, letting me do this session. Always grateful to help people.
Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this session and guiding our students. Good night, sir. We'll be ending the session now, and good night to everyone else.
Good night. Bye.